Jenny Campbell. I'm Chief Exec of the Resilience Dynamic, and it's my great pleasure to introduce you to the second part of our Resilience Discovery series. We are doing a deep dive into data in these series. We are looking at productivity, well-being, mental health. We've been looking at the workforce and leaders, resilience and well-being, and whether they are the same or not, and the implications of this for organizations. Today, we are going to be looking at some very detailed data, and I'm just going to start to bring this up for you, about productivity and well-being, and some really shocking insights that we have had as a result of 6 months deep data dive. I'm going to make a call out to Ellie Coombs, who's our data scientist in the team, and the rest of the team who's put this event together. And what you can expect is 30 to 40 minutes of a discussion around the insights that we have, taken from the Resilience Dynamic Dashboard, a new service that we launched last year, working with Google and other clients. And we have a data set of just under 900 data points that we've done a deep dive into to understand when you pull one lever, what happens to the other. Okay, that's the basic sort of idea behind this. I would suggest that if you have questions, please just fire them in as you go. Don't wait until you've formed a beautiful question right at the end. Please just put them in to the chat room and we will pick them up at the end. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you the key things that we have been learning about activating becoming a healthy organization. So, healthy organization, the term has been really put out there by Josh Bersin in Deloitte, with an incredible set of data and analysis across the world, global results about the upside of investing to become a healthy organization. There are different ranges, there are different start points into that, but you can see on the left here the upside of doing it. 2.2 times more likely to exceed financial targets, 10.8 times less absenteeism. So, you know, there's a lot to play for here. And what we've discovered in our work is many organizations have put in an employee assistance program. Great. There is a safety blanket in there, but it's not enough. You have to proactively get into this space, make it part of your culture, make it normal for it to be talked about, and actually start to measure. So putting in place ways to talk, providing a common language, a common framework, equipping managers and leaders in being able to do this stuff, talk about it with their people in a safe, psychological safe way. Next, stop guessing. There's so many organizations there who think they have X and they put a blanket program in place in order to try and catch people. Don't do that. You don't have a homogeneous population. Okay, you really need to get underneath the data associated with it and understand more. We would recommend getting the resilience tracker, that's our solution, but any other solution directly into your workload planning. Okay, and this is where you really get into this demand capacity piece that we will go on and talk about, and then thereafter activate. So if there's 5 top things you're going to take away from this, take away these things straight off the bat. And why do we have the right to talk about this? Who are we? We are an organization set up to support and build healthy organizations, healthy teams, healthy high-performing teams. We are built on research, many years, since 2007. Grounded theory, qualitative research, now quantitative research thrown into the mix. We understand that people, individuals, need to see their own resilience and well-being in order to really get underneath what's going on. It's not enough to look at the 5 top ways, the 10 top ways, the 24 top ways, the 128 healthy tips if they don't apply to you. You have to see where you are right now and understand the implications for yourself in your resilience. And these are they deeply matter to your mental health, to your performance, to your overall relationships, to your happiness. So seeing your start point can then unlock your understanding of your own behaviours, your patterns, what the opportunities are for shifting it, and then on to optimization. We have this dynamic dashboard. It's a fab new app able to assess, track, get tools and support for your resilience and well-being within any part of your organization, whether that's at individual level. So your leaders may take the dashboard solo and get into actually their own stuff through a kind of coaching model, right through to organizational data. And being able to cut that and see it for different populations, different regions, etc. And the last is, and I described this last week, we are a community of practice. There are around 100 of us, mainly in the UK, but growing elsewhere. We are resilience nutters. This stuff matters to us. And we practice coaching. We bring it in workshops. We can do all sorts of things. And we're systemic practitioners, because at the end of the day, your resilience and your people's resilience is affected deeply by your organization. Okay, so it's that interplay between you as the individual, the team, and the demand upon you from the organization. So we've been at this for a while, and I'm really dying to get into this data. So first of all, let's just make sure that we're on the same page around what we mean by resilience. You may have your own definitions. You may be thinking coping, bounce back. Some of you might be thinking towards adaptability. We know from our many years of research, this is about change. This is at the heart of your ability in an organization to be able to pivot, to be able to handle uncertainty, to be able to handle challenge. It's about your people's capacity for change. And if you don't attend to it and you keep pushing for results, you will get more burnout, you will get mediocrity. And so the key is to actually start to balance up the demand versus the capacity. That all sounds straightforward, right? Except it's not. We use the resilience dynamic as our core frame. And actually, in itself, it shows how dynamic your resilience, your people's resilience, your organization's resilience actually is. It ranges from breakdown, where there's a catastrophic inability to access resources. Somebody who is in breakdown really isn't themselves. Their resourcefulness is sort of shut away in drawers, locked up, and they really need some help. But it ranges right the way through to breakthrough, where people are adaptable, energized, persistent. No matter the context, they are safe in their own skin. You can see this line as a line of psychological safety. In the middle, in that yellow dot, where you're in the kind of normal world. How are you today? I'm okay. It's the okay line, the break-even line. Things are not bad. I'm managing. It can get a bit tough. One side of which is coping where demand and capacity are equal. Great, you are managing, but there's nothing left in the tank. Bounce back, more in the tank, more surplus capacity, but it's very unstable. You rise through the challenge, you punch through it, you feel fab, but then you're shattered. Okay, so it's up and down, but there is a lot of high performance in that area. So anything from bounce back upwards is really quite high performance. Between coping and fragmentation, that's a difficult line. Fragmentation is a pre-breakdown state. It can actually just be off coping. You can have light fragmentation where things, you're not feeling very well, you're not thinking straight, you've got brain fog. But it can also be the state where it's deep fragmentation, chronically there, where you've got burnout, depression, anxiety. This is the domain where we encounter sort of what mental health has traditionally been known for, okay? Areas of real difficulty. And most of us will swing here. So it's possible for us to be coping to fragmentation and then back again. We might be in bounce back, and then because of some real difficulty, we switch back to not coping, and then we come back again. Sometimes we're in two states. Maybe our personal life is fab and our work life isn't, or vice versa. We can even change during the day. So in particular situations, in meetings, we might get difficult feedback. We may shove into coping mode. We'll tuck ourselves down. We may feel quite stressed in that. In another situation where you feel safe, lo and behold, you're performing again. You feel really good. So that in and out, that dynamic nature is absolutely something for you, for your teams and your organizations to get hold of. All our results, all our data results are reflected through this lens. So if you want to know more about it, we'll give you resources at the end. Not that hard to get into, but it is important that you understand the different states here. And the fundamental comes down to these things: capacity on the left, demand in that blue line, and what the gap might be. Coping where they're equal, not coping where there's a big resilience gap or a gap that sort of moves in and out. And on the other side, going up towards that breakthrough where really you have surplus capacity. And what do we mean by capacity? That's three things. The time to do stuff, okay? The sense that you actually have the time. Secondly, the mental capacity, the ability to be able to get perspective, to understand what you're about, get prioritization, start to problem solve. And the third is the skills to be able to actually do the task in hand. So those combination of things makes up capacity. And we are actually really looking at the finessing of how do you balance those two things up, demand versus capacity. Last week, we saw this. We saw that leaders have got a higher level of resilience than the general workforce, and there is an increasing risk of the workforce burning out. So the leadership optimism is going up, and the workforce risk of burnout is also going up, and now you're going to have a real disconnect unless you pace well. And this is, for in our terms, really about minimizing the red flags, okay, between that demand and capacity piece. Where are you out of kilter? What pressure can you put on? When are you driving for results that actually is inappropriate? When are you going to fall over? Your team may actually suffer from genuine well-being issues. Or is it just going to churn the business a bit more? More change, more stuckness, mediocre results. How do you know? And we are thrilled to get into this with you. We have discovered in our data analysis the following. When demand is over capacity, when there is a resilience gap, stress is way up. 80% rise in stress. 80%. We also have in there a 33% drop in energy. Now that matters for your productivity. Overall, we can see when demand is over capacity, productivity is under threat. So that's demand, capacity, energy are those drivers of productivity and performance versus well-being and engagement, and again, under threat. Under threat. We found this data shocking. This is the average across just under 900 data points. It's not the same, and there are nuances depending upon the resilience levels of your people. But just that average data is already a big red flag across us to say, hey, we should be looking at this stuff and acting on it, proacting on it, not waiting until it becomes an issue and where we have to trigger EAPs. Let's get into this beforehand. Now I'm going to take you through the implications of different ranges of that demand capacity against all these drivers. So productivity, demand capacity and energy, and the well-being and engagement drivers on the other hand. So hold on to your hats. Here we go. Our baseline when demand equals capacity, okay? The bad news, when demand starts to increase above capacity, so there is a resilience gap, we start to have dips. Energy dropping 14%, stress is up by 22%. If we really drive the demand and we're putting far more pressure on our people, it increases again. Okay, we're talking about a kind of 25% drop here, energy-wise. It's massive. Yeah, really significantly different. The upside is quite the opposite. If people feel that they have a surplus capacity, just even a little bit, sleep is better, well-being's better, contentedness, and you could read engagement for that, is better. And then when it really is like, oh yeah, I really have got space and time to kind of plan forward, think about what I'm doing, and then healthy boundaries to cut off from work and go home at night, boom, totally different. We've got surplus now. And surplus capacity means innovation, connection, creativity, collaboration, really being able to see proactively down the line and smooth out the bumps of all the challenges that may be coming. This is where you get disruption from. This is where you get reinvention and transformation from. You do not get it where demand is over capacity. So this is really significant data. And we have turned that into a sort of red, amber, green way of working. So we know that through our dashboard and through the resilience tracker feature within that, people can actually start to operate and see their own thresholds. Here is one person's particular thresholds, okay? So sweet spot where things are going really well. The warning zone where, you're starting to get danger zone where you really got that demand over capacity going on. It's really significant. And then red flags, throwing up red flags where somebody is tracking in a way and they're showing over 25% of their time is in the red zone. This is a danger zone. It is a real danger zone. Burnout is really indicative underneath here. So you can see on the left that productivity sort of chart, and on the right those well-being. And you can really, really see, here is somebody who is really not very happy at all. 55% of their time is in discontentment. And what does that lead to? Absenteeism, presenteeism, lower engagement, low ability to be able to actually boost themselves and their energy, etc., etc. And the whole thing can spiral quite downwards. So getting hold of this for yourself even is a kind of light bulb moment for people to be able to go, do you know what? I don't have to operate like this. There are things that I can do. All right. And our app will actually help you go towards the things that are specific to you and your resilience level. If you're at coping, if you're not coping, if you're in bounce back, if you're somewhere in between, etc. There are nuances around this, and they relate back to the resilience dynamic. Now, you don't need to see all this data. You can imagine Ellie, our data scientist, is in heaven swimming about this data, and I'm not going to go through it all. But what I do want to point out is we have done an analysis of these thresholds according to the different levels across the resilience dynamic. From below coping, so that includes those who are shifting between coping and fragmentation and lower, all the way through to coping, break even, bounce back, the whoosh, which is that line of beginning to get higher performance, and end of the whoosh towards breakthrough. And just looking at the colours here, where are you seeing lots of red? The below coping and coping. And what this means is the sensitivity to an increase in pressure is really exponential for those who are already, really struggling to keep it together. Okay? Whereas at the other end, It's lovely. No problem at all. Those who are really keeping their resilience together are actually operating 93% of the time where they're really managing that demand capacity really well. You know, this is just phenomenal. Phenomenal difference here, right? And if you are pacing your work according to the end of the whoosh or the start of the whoosh, you've got it wrong. You need to know where most of your population are. You need to be able, at a team level, to be able to figure that out. You need to be able to proactively manage change by saying, what capacity have we got? How can we boost it? We've got this big thing that we need to get on with. You know, what do we need to do? What is the resilience preconditions for success in that change? Getting to know your people, getting to know your groups, not having a one-size-fits-all solution here, but really enabling individuals, teams to really act on, on behalf of their own resilience and therefore boost things. So you're really getting to see that demand versus capacity. When we have done this, and we are delighted to have been working with Google, one of the divisions in Google globally for the last 2 to 3 years, they had an issue of change and, managing change really successfully, as well as internal wellbeing scores that were lower than the average. So they really wanted to do something about this, both change and well-being. And so they initiated the resilience program using the Resilience Dynamic Dashboard. They first did a pilot, and then they've been rolling out at the back end of last year across all the regions. We're going to show you the pilot data. The pilot results were stunning. There was an average of an increase of 20% in what their activity was. It was really phenomenal. Now you imagine that. Right? There were many people who shifted 2 points up the scale on the resilience dynamic. Yeah. So if you shift your people from the middle of coping to fragmentation up to coping, or coping through to bounce back, boy, do you get a different level of performance. 65% less resilience drains, 59% increase in what we call secure areas, drivers behind your resilience that really matter. There you go, you've got almost 60% shift upwards. People found the tracker and understanding their own patterns. Even us as practitioners have been using this in the community of practice that we have. And we've all, gone, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. And it's only because I'm tracking and journaling associated with it that I really get to see, what's going on in my own behavior, whether that's sleep, whether that's well-being, whether it's my energy. And that energy is related to physical, mental, social, spiritual, what inspires you. You're so, all of these aspects combine to your energy. When Google then rolled out, they're looking for those different levels, okay? Individual resilience increases. Everyone gets a hang of it, yeah? It becomes spread across the organization, so it becomes the norm to talk about it when you're up, you're down, what you might be able to do about it. And what did we actually do? If you take those 5 key elements that I talked about right at the beginning, number 1, don't just wait for the problems. Be proactive. Resilience program, they created one. They had commissioners, project managers, comms leads. They got roadshows going, You can see the kind of normal program. Let everybody know, get engaged, collaborate about how the best way, to roll this out, this idea. How do we equip people, and their team leaders, etc. So that second point, put in place ways to talk. One of the foremost services that we have, very, very, very simple, is a service called Check-in, Check-out. It's not training, it's people practicing a process of powering up and powering down together in a group. Really easy to get hold of, and the implications for psychological safety is boom. Yeah. Then there's other things that we were involved in, coaching, ensuring that managers were equipped to be able to do this for their teams, senior leadership coaching, etc. Stop guessing, start tracking. That's where you get the data. Everybody was using that dashboard enterprise. And in the workload planning, the work had started. So there was a deep investigation going on about actually where were the opportunities and where were the barriers. And we were beginning to get into those early activations of thresholds. And the last thing is owning it for yourselves, right? So there were readiness teams globally, people were being trained as ambassadors, and there was a plan for training internal coaches as well. So significant program here. You don't have to do all that to get it going. Start with dashboards solo, equip your leaders just to be able to get the hang of it. And you can take in, check out. One of the easiest things to actually roll out across your population without any tech involved at all. And then move in to more that tracking element. So you can see where Google has come from, a massive, change in the way that they were working, and a real commitment to shifting the dials on both change and well-being. We are delighted that we're going to be working with some people around the data for their own teams. You are welcome to come into that. And you can see the registration details here. And if you are interested in any other resources, feel free to come into us, go onto our website. There's the book, there's our data paper off the back end of this. And, we really hope that you kind of get hold of this stuff and just start the journey to understand it. So I am delighted to give you that insight into our data, into these productivity and wellbeing thresholds. The very first time we are talking about it live, very first time that we are putting ourselves out there on it, and I'd be delighted if you had any questions. And I'm not seeing many questions come in right now. And so you may be sort of quite bamboozled by the whole of that data stream. And if that is the case, don't worry, I really do understand it. Feel free to be looking at the paper when, there'll be a follow through from this YouTube live, links will be sent out, and take your time in understanding the implications for yourself and your own organisation. I'm absolutely, thrilled to be able to bring this to you, and I do understand it has been a bit of a data deep dive, so you may be a bit bamboozled by it. Take those 5 ideas, and the very first one is don't wait. Start getting proactive about this stuff, and we are in your service if you need to talk to us about that. If there's anyone else who has any questions, please let me know. Cecile, absolutely. You and I were on LinkedIn earlier today talking about these things. Drop in energy of 1/3. Can you imagine? Imagine happening that across your whole organisation. And thanks very much, Sam, for coming in. Really, really delighted that you're here. If there are no more questions, we will actually close the stream. But we are welcome. You're welcome to ask anything if you do have. But very, very pleased to see you all. So thank you very much for coming in, and we wish you well. And may your resilience be with you. Goodbye for now.